It was an unrelenting Nevada afternoon when Lieutenant Colonel Nadine Fletcher, a 43-year-old U.S. Army Reserve physician, eased her silver SUV onto the gravel shoulder of Highway 68. Returning from a conference in Reno, she welcomed the crisp hum of air conditioning as much as the promise of home. But just outside Hollow Creek, the engine sputtered and died, leaving her stranded beneath the blistering sun. Moments later, a single patrol car glided to a stop behind her. She placed both hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel and offered a polite "good afternoon, officer," before rolling down her window. Officer Derek Harrington, in his late 30s with a weather-worn badge, peered at her California plates and barked license and registration. His partner, Officer Troy Sullivan, early 40s, leaned back in the cruiser, arms crossed, amusement flickering in his eyes. Nadine reached calmly into her glove box, retrieving her driver's license. Though she wore the uniform of a 4-star general's granddaughter, crisp olive drab and polished boots, she refrained from flashing her military credentials. In her experience, a reserved approach could diffuse tension. Yet Harrington's thinly veiled hostility surfaced the moment he saw her photograph. "What brings you out here?" "Don't see many Californians on this road," he sniffed. The implication was clear. She didn't belong. Under the vast desert sky, with no one else in sight, a simple traffic stop took on a more ominous edge. Nadine's heart remained steady, but she felt the weight of prejudice hanging heavy in the dry air. In that quiet stretch of highway, a routine check had already turned into something dangerously personal. Officer Harrington steps forward, his mirrored aviators hiding any trace of empathy. "You were creeping at 67 in a 60-mile zone," he growls, though no speed limit sign marked the stretch of desert road. She gently points this out, explaining the sign may have been obscured, but he ignores her. When she mentions her service as a lieutenant colonel, he tilts his head and sneers. "Nice costume," before insisting on more than just a ticket. He demands to search her entire vehicle. His partner, Officer Sullivan, watches from the cruiser with a grin, arms folded across his chest. Harrington's flashlight slices through the cabin, illuminating the empty water bottles, a folded medical chart, and a bag of work papers. Finding nothing illegal, Harrington's anger only intensifies. He orders Nadine out of the driver's seat. Her protests die on her lips as he shoves her roughly onto the hood of her own SUV. The steel cools her palms for an instant before her knee strikes the metal and she winces as the baton cracks against her joint. Her uniform's 4-star insignia catches the late afternoon light, but it does nothing to soften Harrington's rage. Neighbors on the distant shoulders slow down, phones raised. Their screens record the unfolding scene. Nadine keeps her face turned forward, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. She knows that the wrong gesture here could cost her everything, her life included. When she finally voices her objection, Harrington leaps at any excuse to humiliate her further. A torrent of racial slurs escapes him, each one a reminder that her rank and accomplishments are meaningless in his eyes. What began as a routine traffic stop has curdled into a brutal display of power, one woman forced into silence beneath the scorching Nevada sun. Though bruised and shaken, Nadine refused to yield. As Officer Harrington trudged back to his cruiser, his jaw set in fury, she slipped her hand into her pocket and retrieved the small burner phone she kept for emergencies. Her finger hovered over the speed dial button for Major Victoria Maynard at the Pentagon. Moments later, Maynard's crisp voice crackled over the line. "Lieutenant Colonel Fletcher." "What's your status?" "I'm safe for now," Nadine replied, pressing the phone against her shoulder. "Harrington is backing off, but he's called for backup. I need you to intervene." Within seconds, Maynard's tone turned authoritative. "Officer Harrington, this is Major Victoria Maynard, Department of Defense. You are ordered to stand down immediately and cease all actions against Lieutenant Colonel Fletcher." "Acknowledge." A tense silence followed. A distant hum of the cruiser's engine answered instead of words. Then Harrington's voice, tight and unwilling, "Copy that, ma'am." Nadine exhaled, relief rippling through her. She watched Harrington peer at her through the passenger window, anger flashing in his eyes before he slammed his door and moved away. Sliding behind the wheel, she noticed the scorch of his baton still staining her olive drab shoulder and the uniform she'd pressed so carefully now crumpled and stained. She started the engine and rolled onto the highway, the Nevada sun blazing overhead. Each mile stretched before her like a promise and a warning. Harrington's wounded pride would drive him to bring more forces to bear. She had no illusion that her ordeal was over. Yet with every mile, her resolve hardened. She would collect every scrap of evidence, the scorch of the baton, the smudged dust on her sleeves, the exact words of his slurs, the time-stamped images on her phone. This stop would become more than a personal indignity. It would be the spark that illuminated a deeper injustice. As her silver SUV faded into the shimmering heat, Nadine vowed that this act of prejudice, raw and unmasked, would not define her. Instead, it would fuel her mission to turn her suffering into a cause for justice, to ensure no one else would face such cruelty unchecked. By the time the sun dipped behind the jagged Nevada hills, the afternoon's heat gave way to a cooler dusk, but no peace. Officer Harrington's cruiser, still burning with wounded pride, roared back onto the highway behind Nadine's silver SUV. Before she could react, he struck her from behind with brutal force. The impact shoved her vehicle off the asphalt and down into a rocky, dry gulch where the SUV came to a stop against a boulder, jagged as broken glass. Pain shot through Nadine's shoulder and back, but she forced herself to breathe steadily, training an instinct holding the panic at bay. She fumbled for her burner phone and slipped it into her pocket, then unbuckled her seatbelt. Sparks of dust filled the air as she climbed out onto uneven ground, her uniform torn and dusty, her resolve unshaken. From the rim of the gulch, Officer Troy Sullivan peered, first shotgun in hand, eyes gleaming with malice. Harrington followed, Glock drawn, each step measured and deadly. Outnumbered, injured, and alone, Nadine's years in uniform crystallized into a singular purpose: survival. As Sullivan raised his weapon, she ducked to one side and struck him with a precise, well-placed elbow, learned in combat zones overseas. He stumbled backward, clutching his ribs. Harrington hesitated, startled by Nadine's ferocity. But before he could press the advantage, a deep roar filled the canyon rotors overhead. A formation of special operations helicopters appeared against the darkening sky, their powerful blades whipping the desert into a frenzy. Within seconds, operators in full gear slid down ropes onto the highway above rifles trained on the two deputies. Harrington and Sullivan froze, their weapons lowering as commanding voices boomed through loudspeakers. "Drop your arms. You are under federal arrest." Handcuffs clicked shut around their wrists. Nadine stood at the edge of the gulch, breathing hard, every breath a reminder that her defiance and her skill had once again saved her life. As the last echoes of helicopter blades faded, she realized this night's horror would soon be justice's dawn. In the weeks that followed, Lieutenant Colonel Fletcher's desert ordeal ignited a firestorm in Dust Creek and beyond. The city's quiet facades cracked as internal affairs agents and the state attorney general's office launched parallel investigations into Dust Creek PD. Dashcam footage, medical reports, and Nadine's own burner phone recordings formed an unassailable case. Officers Harrington and Sullivan were formally charged with assault under color of authority and civil rights violations. Back in Washington, Nadine stood before a military inquiry panel, her posture immaculate in dress blues, voice measured yet unyielding as she recounted every humiliating detail. Major Maynard sat at the panel's head, her stern nods underscoring the Pentagon's full support. Within days, Maynard secured Fletcher's official reinstatement and directed a comprehensive review of Army Reserve policies regarding off-duty harassment. But victory came with new threats. Senator Travis Harrington Derrick's powerful elder brother fumed over the charges. Leveraging his legislative influence, he produced forged arrest warrants and briefed sympathetic reporters, painting Nadine as a rogue soldier who'd provoked the deputies. Murmurs spread through conservative media. Was the Army protecting one of its own gone wild? Fletcher's carefully cultivated reputation teetered on the brink. Refusing to cede ground, Nadine assembled a legal dream team: a seasoned civil rights attorney, a Pentagon investigator, and her longtime friend Zoe Franklin, now serving as a Department of Justice advisor. Together, they traced the forged documents back to Senator Harrington's office, uncovered financial ties between his campaign and Dust Creek's police union, and prepared to expose the full scope of his vendetta. As subpoenas flew and phone lines buzzed with urgent calls, Nadine found herself once again at the center of a battle for truth, this time against unchecked political power. Standing at the precipice of her career, she vowed that no smear campaign, no forged paper would silence her. The fight for justice had become not only her mission, but her legacy. Even as Senator Harrington's allies in Carson City rallied to defend him, Nadine Fletcher's coalition struck at the heart of Dust Creek's corrupt machinery. In a makeshift war room at Zoe Franklin's law office, Mr. Marcus Chen laid out sworn statements from every family Targeted by the quota's retired Judge Michael Johnson presented a dossier of traffic stop data, and Zoe herself cross-referenced thousands of internal emails revealing month-end bonus payouts tied to minority citations. On the very day Travis Harrington addressed a hastily convened press conference brandishing his forged warrants like trophies, the local NBC affiliate debuted its own explosive report. The anchor recounted how Fletcher's team had authenticated dashcam clips showing deputies joking about easy revenue and forcing residents of color into humiliating detentions. Next footage emerged proving that Harrington's viral assault videos were deepfake fabrications. Viewers watched in stunned silence as Nadine's calm, clear testimony cut through the lies. The hashtag Justice for All trended statewide. Outrage rippled through Nevada. A petition demanding Senator Harrington's resignation drew tens of thousands of signatures in hours. Another called for federal whistleblower protections for any law enforcement officers brave enough to speak out. Suddenly, the senator's backers in the legislature found themselves on the defensive, pressured by constituents demanding accountability. In Washington, federal prosecutors announced they would join the investigation, seizing Harrington's campaign accounts and subpoenaing his closest advisors. Even his longtime political mentor, the state's House Majority Leader, began distancing himself, carefully noting that we must let the facts speak. As the public hearings were scheduled, Lieutenant Colonel Fletcher stood before an overflowing town hall, her uniform once again a symbol of integrity rather than a target. "This is bigger than one road, one department, or one senator," she declared. "It's about ensuring every American, regardless of race or rank, can trust that the law protects them equally." And in that moment, Nadine's desert-born resolve shone brighter than Nevada's neon horizon. Her fight for justice had become a movement, and it showed no sign of slowing. Retaliation intensifies swiftly. Late one night, egg graffiti and smashed windows greet Nadine's parents at their beloved bakery. Flour and dough strewn across the sidewalk become a cruel message. Days later, Dr. Chen's cardiology practice is slapped with an IRS audit over phantom billing errors, forcing him to close for weeks. Zoe arrives at her own office to find broken locks and scattered case files, proof someone wanted her research buried. Yet each attack only forges the coalition stronger. Officer Diane Rodriguez, once torn between loyalty and conscience, publicly defects from Dust Creek PD's Internal Affairs Unit, handing over detailed citation quota spreadsheets that map revenue targets by neighborhood. Retired Judge Michael Johnson's son recounts his cuffs in sworn testimony, and dozens more minority residents step forward with eerily similar stop-and-frisk stories. Even a Veterans Association demands hearings on systemic bias. Under this mounting public and political pressure, Chief Anderson is placed on administrative leave, and evidence-tampering charges are filed against Captain Whitman, proof that the walls of corruption are cracking wide open. In a watershed moment for accountability, the Nevada Attorney General's forensic audit descended on Dust Creek PD like a thunderbolt. Teams in suits and badges hauled away stacks of patrol logs, internal emails, and financial ledgers, documents that revealed over $3 million in revenue generated by quota-driven citations. Within days, Officer Derek Harrington and his partner Troy Sullivan were formally indicted for assault under color of authority, while Officer Diane Rodriguez, her conscience vindicated, was named the department's new integrity officer with real subpoena power. At the same time, a newly empowered Civilian Oversight Board convened its first hearings, summoning department brass to answer for every fabricated warrant and manipulated body cam setting. Back in Carson City, Senator Travis Harrington found himself the target of a federal racketeering probe after investigators uncovered his role in forging warrants and coercing deputies into silence. Veteran civil rights lawyers working alongside Zoe Franklin's team drafted the Justice for All bill, banning all revenue quota systems in Nevada law enforcement and mandating unedited 24/7 body cam footage in every jurisdiction. The ripple effects were immediate. Across Texas city councils convened emergency sessions to mirror Houston's reforms, embedding clear constitutional policing standards and independent oversight into their charters. National law enforcement associations issued statements warning that business-as-usual revenue policing was dead. Even the White House took notice, directing DOJ to study Nevada's model for potential federal adoption. And when Lieutenant Colonel Nadine Fletcher addressed the Nevada legislature, her uniform crisp, her medals a testament to both service and sacrifice, she spoke not just for herself, but for every American who's ever felt the badge meant more than justice. Today she declared, "We proved that when courage meets strategy, even the highest walls of corruption can crumble." As applause echoed through the chamber, it was clear, a new era of policing rooted in transparency, equity, and trust had truly begun. In the years that followed, Nevada's transformation became a national beacon. Dashboards tracking citation demographics turned up on precinct walls from Portland to Philadelphia. Federal Derek S. funded riot de-escalation workshops and bias awareness curricula in police academies. Legislatures in 8 states passed Justice for All, style bills outlawing revenue-driven enforcement and mandating unedited around-the-clock body cam footage. Back in Dust Creek, once embattled precincts now posted monthly community trust scores on their websites measured by surveys and complaint resolutions. Officer Diane Rodriguez, lauded for her integrity, led quarterly town hall forums where residents once wary spoke candidly about their concerns. Chief Anderson, having resigned in disgrace, was replaced by Chief Gabriela Martinez, whose first directive was to personally apologize to every minority household for past abuses. At the Pentagon, Nadine Fletcher rose to Brigadier General, her Medical Intelligence Division, pioneering trauma-informed training for domestic deployments. Yet she never forgot that dusty stretch of Highway 68. In her monthly Fletcher memo sent to every department head in America, she reminded them, "The badge you wear is a promise, not a shield." Her parents' bakery in Las Vegas became the site of annual Justice Jamborees, where donuts sold side by side with policy pamphlets, and Dr. Chen's clinic offered pro bono legal clinics. Michael Johnson's coalition evolved into the National Council for Police Accountability, its members advising Congress on bipartisan reform. By 2050, overt acts of racial profiling had dropped by more than 75% nationwide, though Nadine warned that subtle biases still lingered in training materials and algorithms. "Our work," she told the Academy's centennial graduation, "is never finished. Vigilance isn't a task, it's a way of life." As she clasped the flag during the ceremony, her 4-star insignia gleaming under the auditorium lights, it was clear that one woman's resolve had sparked a revolution, an enduring testament to the power of courage, strategy, and unyielding commitment to true justice. Decades after that fateful afternoon on Highway 68, the Fletcher reforms have reshaped American policing from sea to shining sea. 5 states have banned citation quotas outright, and dozens more have empowered truly independent review boards to investigate misconduct. In Washington, D.C., congressional hearings once again wrestle with the doctrine of reasonable suspicion, resulting in new federal Derek S. that condition funding on constitutional rights compliance. Back in Las Vegas, Nadine's parents' humble bakery, once a quiet corner shop, now hosts monthly coffee with cops gatherings where neighbors and officers meet on equal footing over fresh pastries and honest conversation. Chen's legal clinic and Michael Johnson's retired judge network have joined forces with Zoe Franklin's Civil Rights Division, ensuring that every complaint is logged, every pattern exposed, and every victim heard. Across state lines, mayors and district attorneys point to Nevada's example as proof that transparency and accountability breed real trust. Yet in quieter moments, Nadine Fletcher knows that no reform is ever final. She sits in her Pentagon office, the soft Nevada sunlight falling across her Silver Star citation and the sealed indictment of Senator Travis Harrington. She recalls the desert's scorching heat, the flash of badges, and the sting of injustice memories that fuel her resolve. Systemic racism, she understands, does not disappear. It mutates and resurfaces in new guises whenever power goes unchecked. As she traces the engraving on her medal and reads the redacted lines of that long-awaited indictment, she allows herself a brief, bittersweet smile. One woman's refusal to bow changed laws, uprooted entrenched practices, and inspired communities to reclaim their rights. But the final chapter, true enduring equality, remains unwritten. Nadine closes her eyes, listening to the distant hum of traffic on the Pentagon's perimeter road. She whispers a promise to every generation yet to come: the work continues. For justice is not a trophy to be won and shelved, but a flame that must forever be tended. The fight for equal protection under the law is far from over, and as long as she draws breath, she will stand ready. From this story, we learn that courage, perseverance, and clear strategy can transform an unjust system. The message is that any individual, regardless of background or rank, can become a catalyst for justice by refusing to remain silent in the face of prejudice. If I were the protagonist, I would keep compiling evidence, support other victims, and lobby for tougher policies to prevent racial bias. Will racism be eradicated by 2050? Probably not entirely, but through sustained reforms, empathy training, and transparent oversight, we can reduce it to levels that society simply cannot tolerate. This work spans generations and demands patience and unwavering determination. Disclaimer. This story is entirely fictional. All characters and events are creations of the author and are not intended to reference or criticize any real person. It is designed to raise awareness of responsibility, justice, and the importance of treating one another with respect and dignity. We firmly oppose all forms of violence, prejudice, and injustice. Please consider this before viewing.